Hello friends, let us now learn some important points about the acute retropharyngeal abscess. So there is acute retropharyngeal abscess. So in acute retropharyngeal abscess is seen in children less than 6 years of age. It is seen in peak incidence between 3 to 5 years of age. It is seen in children and it is seen in adults. So if it is seen in children, the most common suppuration or abscess of the retropharyngeal abscess occurs mainly due to the infection from other sites, like infection from adenoids or nasopharynx or posterior nasal sinus infections or posterior nasal cavity infections. In all these conditions, you will see infection spreading it to the retropharyngeal space, causing retropharyngeal abscess in adults. What are they? Adenoids and any infection in the posterior nasopharynx, posterior nasal sinus and nasal cavity. Then if you see the same in adults, if you see, most commonly this involves the penetrating injury, then penetrating injury to the posterior pharyngeal wall. This includes penetrating injury to the posterior pharyngeal wall, or if it also includes the cervical esophagus. Okay, penetrating injury to the posterior pharyngeal wall and cervical esophagus will cause acute retropharyngeal abscess in adults. Now, if you were asked what is the most common organism involved is Streptococcus viridans is the most common organism involved, followed by Staphylococcus aureus is involved. So, what is the clinical features? In the clinical features, you will see fever. The patient will have torticollis. Because this retropharyngeal abscess will compress the airway. It can cause stridor to the patient and it can cause dysphagia also is seen. So on examination you will see that there is a unilateral posterior pharyngeal swelling will be seen only on the one side, and this posterior pharyngeal swelling will press or compress on the trachea and the esophagus, thus causing dyspnea and dysphagia. When it compresses the trachea, it causes difficulty in breathing, which is dyspnea. If it compresses the esophagus, then it causes difficulty in swallowing, which is dysphagia. Then, how are you going to treat this retropharyngeal abscess? The treatment of retropharyngeal abscess is you can do incision and drainage without general anesthesia. Is done, and this incision is mainly given intraorally. It is given intraorally at the site of maximum bulge. So you can also give antibiotics can be given to the patient, and even you can also do tracheostomy is also done if the abscess is very large. Tracheostomy is done if the abscess is very large, and if it causes mechanical obstruction, then you do tracheostomy of the airway. Then the next important thing is about the chronic retropharyngeal abscess. Then what do you see in chronic retropharyngeal abscess? In chronic retropharyngeal abscess is mainly seen in adults, and it occurs because of the TB of cervical spine. Whenever there is TB of cervical spine, this is also called as Pott's spine. So this TB of cervical spine will cause enlargement of the retropharyngeal lymph nodes secondary to tuberculosis of deep cervical lymph nodes. So there is TB of retropharyngeal lymph nodes secondary to tuberculosis of deep cervical lymph nodes. So what are the clinical features? In these patients you will see that there will be discomfort to the throat. Because of the abscess, there will be discomfort to the throat, and pain and fever will be seen. There will be progressive neurological signs and symptoms may be seen. If there is spinal cord compression, there is progressive neurological signs and symptoms will be seen. And what about the diagnosis? If you can do an X-ray. On X-ray, you will see widening of the retropharyngeal space will be widened, and the retropharyngeal space will be more than 3/4 the diameter of the cervical vertebrae. You will see widening of retropharyngeal space, and this will be more than 3/4 the diameter of cervical vertebrae. And you will also see the straightening of the cervical space is also seen, and you will see presence of gas shadow. So these are seen in chronic retropharyngeal abscess. Now, if you see the diagnosis, so what do you see in diagnosis? Treatment. So diagnosis is X-ray. Now in treatment, first you give anti-tubercular therapy is given to the patient, and anti-gravity aspiration is done, and external drainage is also done through the cervical incision. So you give anti-tubercular therapy is given, anti-gravity aspiration is done, and external drainage is done. So the main treatment is external drainage. This external drainage can be done in two ways. It can be done by either high abscess and it can be done by low abscess. Okay, if it is done by high abscess, that is, in high abscess you will give a vertical incision along the, see, if this is the neck of the person, okay, this is the sternum, and this is the, he is in the stride, this is the mandible. Okay, this is the mastoid process. Okay, so from the mastoid process, the sternocleidomastoid will come and it will attach to the clavicle. Okay, I mean sternum and the clavicle. Now this will be the clavicle, something like this. Now the thing is, there are two incisions can be given. One, you can give an incision along the posterior border of sternocleidomastoid. This is the anterior border, this is the posterior border. So you give an incision along the posterior border of sternocleidomastoid. This is given for high abscess cases. You give an incision along the posterior border of sternocleidomastoid like this. Okay, for low abscess cases, you give an incision along the anterior border of sternocleidomastoid. For this, okay, you will give an incision, vertical incision along the anterior border of sternocleidomastoid for low abscess. Okay, this is how you treat the chronic retropharyngeal abscess. Next, the next important abscess in here is parapharyngeal abscess. So in parapharyngeal abscess, which is also called as lateral abscess of lateral pharyngeal space, or it is also called as pterygomaxillary space or pharyngomaxillary space. So we have parapharyngeal abscess, abscess of lateral pharyngeal space, pterygomaxillary space or pharyngomaxillary space. Here in this parapharyngeal abscess, if you see the etiology of parapharyngeal abscess, it occurs due to the pharynx, then it can occur due to the adenoids, or it can occur due to the tonsil infection. So, or it can be from the teeth. From the teeth, dental infection or extraction of the lower 1/3 of the molar teeth, these will result in parapharyngeal abscess in 40% of the cases. In 40% of the cases, parapharyngeal abscess occurs due to the dental infection or extraction of the lower 1/3 of the molar tooth in 40% of the cases. In ear, you will see that the patient develops petrositis, and then he will also develop Bezold's abscess. In ear, the patient develops petrositis and Bezold's abscess. And external trauma like penetrating injuries to the neck can also be seen in parapharyngeal abscess. Can also cause parapharyngeal abscess. Some external trauma or penetrating injuries to the neck can also cause parapharyngeal abscess. Now, if you see parapharyngeal abscess, the clinical features depend upon the compartment. We have two compartments of parapharyngeal abscess. One, we have anterior compartment. Second, we have posterior compartment. So, first in the anterior compartment, what happens if there is parapharyngeal abscess? So, anterior compartment and posterior compartment are mainly divided by styloid process. Styloid process will divide the anterior compartment and posterior compartment. Okay, what are the contents of the posterior compartment? In the posterior compartment, you will see internal carotid artery, internal jugular vein, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th cranial nerves, and you see presence of sympathetic chain, and also upper deep cervical lymph nodes are seen. Internal carotid artery, internal jugular vein, 9th, 10th and 11th cranial nerves, sympathetic chain, and upper deep cervical lymph nodes are seen in the posterior compartment. Then if you see anterior compartment, the the components are pterygoid. Then we have tensor villi palatini is seen, and you will also see maxillary artery, and also you will see branches of mandibular nerve are seen in the anterior compartment. So now the clinical features depend upon these things. Okay, in the anterior compartment, one thing, if there is anterior compartment, if there is if there is a tumor in the anterior compartment, then obviously the tumor will be pushed medially. That is one thing which happens. Next, because of the pterygoid muscle is present in the anterior compartment. Now this pterygoid muscle undergoes spasm, and when this pterygoid muscle undergoes spasm, this results in trismus, and there is external swelling is seen behind the jaw at the posterior part of middle one-third of sternocleidomastoid. So at the posterior one-third or middle one-third of sternocleidomastoid, if this is the sternocleidomastoid, then at the posterior middle one-third of sternocleidomastoid, that is here posterior middle one-third of sternocleidomastoid, you will see an external swelling behind the angle of jaw, and also this will also cause odynophagia. Okay, so these are the main symptoms of anterior compartment. If you see in the posterior compartment, there will be bulge in the posterior wall behind the posterior pillar. Behind the posterior pillar in the posterior wall, we will see bulge, and we will see 9th, 10th, 11th nerve palsy will be seen, and there is involvement of sympathetic chain leading to Horner's syndrome, and you will also see presence of torticollis is seen. Here you will see presence of torticollis because of the involvement of spasm of prevertebral muscles. So these are the main clinical features based on the compartment. Then if you see the investigation of choice done is CT scan is done in this patient. Treatment is you will admit the patient to the hospital and give IV antibiotics. You will give IV penicillin is given to the patient. You will give IV penicillin is given to the patient, and if there is failure to, and you will have to wait for some time. But if this fails, or you can also give cefuroxime also. IV penicillin and cefuroxime can be given. If this fails, then there is surgical abscess will develop. So this surgical abscess drainage should be done. Okay, if this fails, then you should do drainage in the surgical abscess. You should give a collar neck incision should be given at the neck of the, you should give a collar neck incision is given at the level of the hyoid bone under general anesthesia, and you should drain the abscess. Okay, so this is about the parapharyngeal abscess. The next important disease is the Vincent's angina. Vincent's angina, or we have something called as trench mouth, or we have also called as ulcerative gingivitis. Vincent's angina, trench mouth, or ulcerative gingivitis. So what are the etiology? Etiology of Vincent's angina is mainly caused by spirochetes. That too, it is caused by Borrelia vincenti. It is caused by spirochetes, that is Borrelia vincenti, and it is caused by anaerobes, and also Bacillus fusiformis will cause the Vincent's angina. So if you see the predisposing risk factors are, there are very poor dental hygiene. In a patient with very poor dental hygiene, or debilitated patient, if there is these infections, this will result in Vincent's angina. This Vincent's angina is actually a deadly condition. It causes necrotizing gingivitis. In necrotizing gingivitis, the gums are actually covered by the necrotic membrane. The gums are covered by the necrotic membrane. Then you will also see the presence of bleeding of gums will be seen, and there will be ulceration of the mucosa of the tonsils, and pharynx and mouth will be seen. Okay, necrotizing gingivitis, you will see bleeding of gums, ulceration of mucosa, tonsils and pharynx will be seen, and here the patient presents with low grade pyrexia and sore throat. Okay, then once you have seen about the necrotizing gingivitis, now clinical features. Now on examination, what do you see? On examination, this is tonsil. Okay, this is the uvula. Okay, this is the tongue. Now, on the you will see that there will be one important feature, which is presence of grayish black membrane. You will see presence of grayish black membrane is seen on one tonsil, and it will also involve the gum, soft palate and hard palate also. There is grayish black membrane which is involving the one tonsil with gum involving the gum, soft palate and hard palate. This membrane, when you try to remove it, so this will bleed when tried to remove it. Okay, so there is foul smell in the breath is also seen. So how are you going to treat it? Treatment is you do sodium bicarbonate gargles are done, and you can also do penicillin is given along with metronidazole. So treatment is you do sodium bicarbonate gargle, and you give the patient penicillin and metronidazole, and then you will do dental care is also done to the patients. So these are the main features of Vincent's angina or trench mouth. Then one more important angina has angina in its name. Okay, we have one more thing which is called as Ludwig's angina. So what do you see in Ludwig's angina? In Ludwig's angina, we have infection is present in the submandibular space. Here the infection is present in the submandibular space. The etiology is even this occurs due to the dental infection. Dental infection in 80% of cases causes Ludwig's angina. Now the type of tooth depends upon the space involved. So if the submandibular space, remember submandibular space, it has two components. One, it has sublingual space, and second, it has submaxillary space. Submandibular space has two components. One, it has sublingual space, second, it has submaxillary space. So if there is dental infection at the root of the premolars, dental infection at the root of the premolars causes infection of sublingual space. It results in sublingual space infection. Then dental infection in the root of molars. Dental infection in the root of molars causes infection in submaxillary space infection will occur. It will result in submaxillary space infection. Okay, so as a result in this Ludwig's angina, there will be two things. One, if there is infection at the root of premolar, this will cause sublingual space infection. Second, if there is infection in the root of molar, this will result in submaxillary space infection will be there. So submandibular space infection is of two types. One, we have sublingual space infection. Second, we have submaxillary space infection. Okay, one more etiology. The next one more disease is causing Ludwig's angina is, we also have submandibular adenitis. We have something called as submandibular adenitis is also seen, and there is fracture of mandible will also cause Ludwig's angina. So what are the clinical features? Clinical features are, because of the infection in the submandibular space, there will be odynophagia, that is difficulty in swallowing. There will be trismus. If the sublingual space is involved, so this is the tongue, right? If the sublingual space is involved, so sublingual space will cause, there will be pus will be present in the sublingual space. As a result, this tongue which is present here, it will be pushed up. Okay, the tongue will be pushed up and back. And when it pushed up and back, here what will you have? Here you will have the airway, right? If it is pushed up and back a lot, this will obstruct the airway also, and thus it will decrease the airway. So sometimes the infection from this submaxillary space, this can also spread into the submental space in the neck. Neck you will have submental space, it spreads into the submental space. This can also cause cellulitis of the floor also. Then what about the treatment? Treatment is, you will have to do IV antibiotics is done, and then you will have to do incision and drainage is done. So if it is a sublingual incision, sublingual space is involved, then you should give a intraoral incision is given for sublingual space. If it is submaxillary space is involved here, then you should give a external incision should be given for submaxillary space. Okay, so this is about the Ludwig's angina. Then the last and final infection of the pharynx is, we have something called as Thorwald's bursitis. Thornwald's bursitis, or we have nasopharyngeal bursitis. Thornwald's bursitis or nasopharyngeal bursitis. So what do you see in Thornwald bursitis or nasopharyngeal bursitis? Here there is an infection of the pharyngeal bursa. What is pharyngeal bursa? This pharyngeal bursa is also called as Luxa's pouch, and it is a remnant of the notochord. Where is it located? It is located in the midline of posterior wall of nasopharynx in the adenoid mass. So this is actually a bursa which is located in the adenoid mass. If there is the blockade in the opening of the bursa, if there is blockade in the opening of the bursa, it results in cysts or abscess. So if you see, this is the nose, this is the mouth, okay. Here there will be nasopharynx. This is the nasopharyngeal compartment. Okay, you will see adenoid somewhere here. So you will see the bursa also somewhere here. Think that there is a bursa here. Okay, now there is a bursa here, and there is the opening of the bursa is blocked. So because the opening of the bursa is blocked, there will be persistent post-nasal discharge will be there. So there will be, the bursa will produce some discharge. So there will be persistent post-nasal discharge will be there with crusting in the nasopharynx. In the nasopharynx you will see crusts, and there will be obstruction, because this will form a big swelling. If it forms, there will be obstruction or swelling in the nasopharynx. If there is swelling in the nasopharynx, this will obstruct the air which is coming and flowing into the nasopharynx to oropharynx. So there will be obstruction in the nasal obstruction causes dyspnea also, and then because of this, here there will be opening of eustachian tube also somewhere here. So whenever the eustachian tube opening is also blocked because of this enlarged swelling, okay. So because the eustachian tube is blocked, it can lead to serous otitis media, okay, and the patient also develops dull type of occipital headache, and recurrent sore throat and low grade fever is seen. So on examination, you will see that on the posterior wall of the this is the nasopharynx. On the posterior wall, you will see cystic fluctuant swelling is seen, and this is treated by, how are you going to treat it? Obviously you should treat it with antibiotics, and marsupialization of cystic swelling is done, and you can also do adequate removal of lining membrane can be done by oral or palatine approach. So this is about the Thornwald bursitis. Thank you.